This is the next installment in the eGlobal Author Salon session, identifying style, genre, and voice, and fleshing out beats with AI. As you've already noticed, we have a guest speaker in the house, Elizabeth Ann West. Elizabeth, would you give us a little introduction?
Sure. I am obsessed with artificial intelligence and harnessing it for creative endeavors. So I published my first book with AI assistance in December of 2021. I've published multiple books since then. And now I am an educator since December of last year on how to prompt with artificial intelligence and also how to innovate on prompting and pushing the limits of what the capabilities are with these superpowers that we have now. And I now am a CEO of a school called Future Fiction Academy, which is like a guild. So it's a bunch of different authors who are successful authors teaching and instructing. And we have this great community where we are learning how to use the best in AI. And we are even building our own proprietary tool that is free with your tuition to FFA you'll see it a little bit later this session. And it just is going to give everyone writing superpowers.
Wonderful. And as I said before, we've actually been on her side, many of us within the AI writing community. And it's been amazing to see some of the information that is flowing. And it's great to always see authors banding together to help other authors. My name is Marigold, and I am a North American author, and I write fiction, poetry, and script writing. Cece, would you introduce yourself?
Here I was hoping you forgot all about me.
No.
I'm a writer from Texas. I'm self-published for the most part, and that's how I make my living, and I'm thrilled to be here.
And our other co-host today is Lynn Jordan. Would you introduce yourself, Lynn?
I'm Lynn Jordan, and I've been around writing for publication since the 80s, and I've been around computers longer than that. So I just love the AI. It lets me marry my two passions. And I have found these classes with Mira Gold and the Future Fiction Academy with Elizabeth so very helpful in these areas.
Very nice. Today, as stated, we are going to talk about what it means to give your story a voice. One of the things that I notice with the AI, often the content can feel flat or all the characters can take on a same tone. And that's one of the things that I've really been prompting with some of the different LLMs to make sure that I can layer specific voices into my body of work. Because as an author, I don't want all of my characters to sound the same. So one of the things that we are going to go over today is that Trinity of Narrative Identity. We are going to dig down deep into style, genre, and voice. And we're going to take a look at their individual and combined impacts on a piece of writing. There's no better way to do that than to actually maybe dig in with Rexy in a little bit and take a look at some of the stuff that Elizabeth is doing within that tool. Another thing that we want to focus on is translating and finding some instructions that are going to help us push the AI to give us some clear, precise AI prompts that are going to help us identify that voice, that genre, that style that is going to match our content. And again, we want to enhance the consistency. We want our book to have that same feel or flavor consistently across. Now, AI as a mirror. We need to learn how to utilize AI to reflect those attributes of our work. And we're going to experiment with that a little bit today. Now, I know that y'all have seen this prompt before, and I know that I've drilled it into everybody's head who has attended the classes, but I went ahead and went a step further. If you look right below the stem of when a major event happens, the central character must perform this main action or goal, and this important thing is at stake because of the antagonistic force. I'm going to show y'all how to take a prompt and be able to have it spit out a little log line for you or a tagline for your novel. When Laura Solis discovers a birthmark linked to a mysterious realm, she must unravel her family's hidden past to prevent a powerful entity from merging both worlds, risking the obliteration of her own reality and everyone else she holds dear. Now, I was in an elevator and I had to pitch something to somebody. I'd like to know that I knew what my story was about, and this is one way that AI can help us. Who's ready to play a little bit? I'm going to take a few extra minutes here before I hand some of the reins over to Elizabeth. I am going to take us into Chat GPT, and we are going to play with a prompt and have it generate some content for us. So let me go ahead and get rid of this screen. We are going to play with some prompts. So one of the things that I really like to play with is taking a look at how we can use a first-person POV, how we can use that information and roll it all up. I want to know that I want to direct the AI when I'm writing prose. I want to know that it's going to speak in my character's voice. I want to know that it's going to understand who my characters are at the heart of those individuals. So we're going to play with these, and I am going to show you how to pull those up. We're also going to look at genre style, and we're going to look at some of the story elements for urban fantasy, and we're going to look at some of the percentages for those. We're also going to cover some of the tasks and looking at the POV, looking at sensory details and how we can add more detail to our body of work, how we can guide a chapter to have internal thought, or we could turn it off simply by coming in here and typing false. When there are things that we want to avoid, we can input that and tell the LL. Sometimes it'll listen, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it gets a little quirky and wants to throw out its own information. But again, we're going to play around with some of these prompts. But before we do that, I would really like for y'all to see some of the great things that Elizabeth Ann West is doing inside of her FFA community. And Elizabeth, if you would like to share your screen, you are welcome to do that. I've just given the ability for you to pull content in.
Sure. I will share my screen right here for everyone to see. Miracle, do you have that prompt handy by any chance on that first slide when a major event happens? If you don't, that's okay. I was just going to see if I could get it in the chat, maybe.
Yeah, let me just pull it in. Give me just a moment here.
Sure. I was going to thief it to show off some Rexy.
Also, Miracle, that the log line about Laura Salas, was that your actual log line, your elevator pitch?
That is something early, and I'm going to show y'all that right inside of E4. As soon as we're done with this demonstration, I'm going to show y'all how y'all can input what Elizabeth is fixing to play with.
Thanks. And I shared with you guys a link in the chat. This is a Notion page that's going to have all the information that I'm working with today. So that way you guys have access to all the prompts and stuff that run. And I did a little bit of pre-work too. But so just introducing Rexy. Miracle, how much time do I have so I can keep an eye on the clock?
I think that how much time do you foresee? About 30 minutes? Our classes have been...
Sure, we'll try 30 minutes.
We always run over, so don't worry.
I know you got to lie to me. You better lie to me. So I'll try. All right, a little bit about me. I love prompting, and I have a very strong opinion and belief system that creatives need to have the power to run these large language models. There's a lot of software that we're getting thrown out. How many of you guys are watching all of the different AI tools and stuff coming down the pipeline at you? I'm watching the chat, by the way. So if you answer in chat, it helps me. I can see it. And the hard thing to sort all this stuff out is like, which tool lets me do this? Which tool lets me do that? And I have made the opinion that we need a tool that gives us full control. And what does that look like? And that's, we're learning our prompts. And then that's also using a tool called an API. An API is something that all those other tools are using. So any kind of tool that you're using, whether it's Jasper, Pseudowrite, or Typing Mind, or Verb, or Poe.com, they're calling the information using an API from the large language model providers, which if authors are given their own API keys, then they can also have a tool for them that they bring those API keys in. So this is Rexy. His name comes from, I always used to say, don't be a T-Rex and forget that your hands reach the keyboard. or that your voice can speak into it. So Rexy is designed to basically be our little junior writer and write those prompts for us and stuff like that, write the AI writing for us. So yeah, go ahead.
It says that it exports to Scrivener. So does it go straight into somebody's Scrivener or do they have to download it?
There's just 2 little steps to get it into Scrivener. This is just an update of the latest changes that our wonderful Joseph Yu has done. And he's doing new things every single day. Like we get new features every day. If we can do it, we just do it. And y'all know Dasha always comes in when I'm teaching. And now my dog is scratching. I apologize. Come on. You wouldn't come in before.
Well, one of the things that I found interesting whenever I was inside of Rexy was the ability to stack some of my prompts. And I believe you call that the banger. And
It's the word banger.
there you go. And
Oh.
I found that really interesting. So will you be demoing any of that today?
Yes, I will be demoing word banger too. You're getting a little ahead of me. So just a little
Not
bit
a
how we put our stuff
problem.
in.
No.
No, it's okay. So what you'll do is you'll bring in your API keys and we have a basic onboarding for that. And then you just copy and paste. If I want all my information if I want Rexy to write to this particular page, it's as simple as copying this URL, coming to Rexy and throwing it right here. And once I do that, it's going to write to that Notion page for me. And this is actually even going to get even easier very soon because we're moving to a system that'll allow you to just have a Notion page with everything all good to go.
Now, are
So-
you limited to the one page or can you have multiple?
You can change the page at whim. A lot of those features are going to be are going to give them. We're going to have the ability where you can just go, I'm working on project 1, so it goes to the project 1 page. I'm working on project 2, so it'll go to the project 2 page. I have a war on copying and pasting. How many of you hate copying and pasting when you're working with an AI? Right? It just takes you right out of flow. So I'm going to do a very basic thing. Did you have that prompt, Michelle? Oh, there it is. I see it right there.
Oh, yeah. I snuck it in there.
I'm going to grab this prompt. I'm going to go to my library really fast. So what we're building at the FA is a taxonomy of prompts. How many of you have had a hard time of keeping your prompts straight? We not have Word documents upon Word documents of all these different prompts. So we have started to create a taxonomy of where these prompts go. So if it's a character prompt, it's in the 300s. If it's in world building, it's 200s. We're not saying everybody has to follow these taxonomies, but we're trying to be very opinionated and start building the skill set for our peers, for our colleagues, so that we can start sharing prompts and stuff like that. In the future, if I'm like, hey, Lynn, here's my plotting prompt. It's a 400. She sticks it in her 400s. And that way we can start sharing prompts and do a decimal system for prompts. We can talk apples to apples with each other. So I'm going to use my ideas and inspiration one and the story premises. And I'm just going to go ahead and click load that prompt. And then I'm going to click this to go to the actual prompt information here. Now, we always provide you with a default prompt, but guess what? I'm all about control. You can change these at any time. This is just an input box. Hi, Steve. So you can make changes anytime to the prompts that are here. Now, the way that this system works is that it guides you on how you would use this prompt. You're a brilliant editor for a New York City publisher. Give me number, and that number correlates to this field right here that's labeled number. Is this too complicated for anyone yet, or is everyone getting it? I just put the number in the box. So I'm going to put 4 of novel story premises for the genre. Which genre did we want to work with today? You're doing urban fantasy, correct?
I am doing urban fantasy, yes.
So I'm going to just put that in the genre box. Now I'm going to change this prompt because Miragold was really kind enough to give us that prompt. So I'm going to say that follows this format. I'm just going to put an insert, a colon here, and I'm going to paste that in. Does everyone see how I changed that prompt?
One thing you may want to add at the end of that is it's important to have the stake there, but also to show what happens if the goal is not achieved. What's at stake?
We're just getting the story premises for right now, right?
Perfect.
Okay. So I'm just demoing that it can do a prompt on the fly, that you can change it. Now I have this ideas box here and it's like, oh no, I didn't put anything in my ideas box. Do I need to? Nope, because the ideas box is not in this prompt anywhere. If it doesn't have the curly brackets with the word to match the box, it's okay. It's not going to cause a problem. So you have full control over the prompt at all times and full control over what user interface elements you want to use in your prompting. You don't have to use the ones we get.
Yeah.
Now on the left-hand side, you have your choice of models here. If you don't have Anthropic key, you can there's a company called Open Router and you can get a key from them, and that'll let you run Claudes. It'll also let you run a whole bunch of different not safe for work models, including Weaver and Mythomax and things like that. But I'm going to go ahead and stick with OpenAI for right now. And let's just do 16K so it's fast. And I'm also going to show you guys something else that's cool. Oh, go ahead.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Now, those different models, are some of those, I know some of them are chargeable. Are some of them free or do they all charge?
All of these charge, OpenAI and Anthropic. OpenRouter sometimes has some that are free over the weekend, and you just have to find out. I believe the Mythalian is still free. If anyone ever has a question on that for those, if they go into their config file and the OpenRouter pricing table, it will actually show them the real-time pricing. So Mythalian is here, and it's 0.0018 per 1,000 tokens.
Wow.
So it's like fractions of a penny. That's not even a penny, y'all. That's a tenth of a penny. Yeah, 18% of a penny.
That's just insane.
I know. My brain hurts sometimes figuring out the different things here. So I'm going to come back to this prompter, and everything's right here. We're going to go ahead and do a 16K. Now, I want to show you something that came out of one of our labs from Leland, one of our founders. Leland had a whole lab on hyperparameters, which is what we call these different things that you can change about your LLM models. How many of you wish OpenAI would write Claude? Anyone?
That could be interesting as long as this doesn't go way off on a tangent.
So what we're going to do is we're going to put our temperature at 1.8. Now, how many of you are like, oh no, it's going to blow up. You can't put your temperature that high. But the other key thing that you need to do is you need to change your top P and bring down your top P. What this does is it controls the range of tokens that the AI is allowed to choose from, specifically so that only the top 60% are considered. So you're basically telling the large language model, go crazy, and then out of all those crazy ideas, I want you to pick the most realistic one.
Nice.
Now, if I didn't want to use temperature raised and lowered, great question. So the temperature controls your randomness. How away from the prompt is it allowed to go? So this is why sometimes if you guys experiment with it and you put the temperature up high, you just get gibberish if you don't also change those fine-tune knobs as well. Before we click the button, I want to show you one other thing that Rexy can do for you. Rexy can just create for you very complicated prompts. I'm just going to show you really fast. Yes, Marika, potato president. Got it. Exactly. You will get some random stuff like sentient potatoes.
Oh my.
Yep. So I'm going to just say that this was the 4 urban fantasy story premises. Oh my gosh, my hands are cold, so I'm not typing very well. Apologies here. And when I click this construct the prompt only, what it'll do for me is it shows me a preview of what the prompt is going to look like. And then it'll also put that on a Notion page for me so that I can just copy and paste that into any chatbot or anything else that I have. If I don't want to use the API, or maybe the API is down or something like that, I can use this to take this into Poe, take this into ChatGPT, take it into Claude, whatever I want to do. Now, I know this doesn't look very exciting here, but just to show you one I created earlier, this is Marigold's prompt that I was able to create with just one click because it just brought all that information in. So it can really save you time. Did you have a question about the prompt creation?
Actually, I did.
Yeah.
In that construction, if, say, you're using a prompt and will it show you if it has an error? Will it pinpoint what you may need to correct?
Not yet. We do have an idea of bringing in some prompting to evaluate prompts for correctness, contradictions, and stuff. With this particular tool, anything that you guys want prompting on, we can create the prompting and we can put it into the prompt library. So it's a one-click, load that prompt, bring in your Notion page that has your mega prompt, and it'll analyze. We could have it analyzed for contradictions or issues.
Like how I like to share my prompts with the public at large. So I could potentially come in as a member and I could share my prompts and have it go into your library, correct? Or if I wanted private ones, I could do that.
Yeah. So you would work with me and I would put the prompts that you want to share into our library. And we can even do something where we can give people's credit the thing, or we can do personal prompt libraries are coming at the end of the month so that our users, our FFA users will have their own personal prompt library. So if your writing sequence with AI may look different from mine. How many people here start with their character to develop a story? Anybody start with their characters rather than the plot?
Not me. I am.
Somebody's saying, yeah, characters first. Yeah. See, I start with plot and then I go characters. So we can create, we're on the precipice of moving into the next 6 months where people are going to be developing their own personal sequences of prompts that are their formulas for whatever parts of their writing process that they want AI to help in. If you wanted to write prose, then your sequences would have those prose writing prompts. If you don't want it to write prose, you would only have the brainstorming, or maybe you only use it for editing. But we're really moving into this really like highly customizable, you're in control, you're the genius at the wheel methodology of writing with AI.
Nice.
All right, so let's go ahead and run this prompt. So I'm just going to click this button of running 16K turbo. There's our little Rexy, and we do have streaming right here. So it's going to stream it right on the right-hand side. What's happening right now is that on the back end, basically a call went out and said, hey, this person, which is Elizabeth Ann West, PI key, she wants to talk with you. And then my prompt got sent to OpenAI, and then OpenAI sent a response back. This is exactly what happens in all those other all those other software that's out there, whether it's Jasper or Verb or Poe or Typing Mind or Pseudowrite. They're also doing this exact same methodology. Put the call out, and then it comes in. The difference between Rexy and those tools is that we don't hide anything from you in terms of what happens between you and the AI. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So we have these prompts. I think it followed the prompt right here. It's got 4. So check, it did the 4.
Nice.
Let's validate them. When a powerful magical artifact is stolen from the heart of New York City, the skilled thief, Lily Sullivan, must retrieve it before it falls in the wrong hands and unleashes chaos upon the city's inhabitants. Would you say, Miracle, that kind of suffices, like it says what's at stake?
It does. But what happens if it's not achieved, which chaos will be unleashed? Yes, I'd be okay to flesh that out further.
And this is a 3.5 model, guys. This is the cheapest one OpenAI offers. So I didn't even use the expensive 4K one. But we can, and this is the other cool thing, that at the bottom here, you'll see that it has the completion right there on my Notion. And then it also has the all-important logs. When I click the log, I'll answer you in just a second, CC. The log is, I think, one of the most important things that I always wanted. It literally captures for you exactly the settings you did. So if you ever have to go back and rerun prompts or something, and you're like, oh my gosh, last Tuesday, what was I doing? I was doing so much experimentation. I don't remember my life. Was I 1.8? Was I 1? What was I doing to get those good results? We actually log it for you.
That is incredible.
CC, you had a question.
Yes, ma'am. Can you go back to that other page with all the premises real quick, please?
Oh, sure. Right here. Do you want to make it easier for you to see it?
Yes,
This is-
ma'am. Okay, so looking at this right here, we have the genre where you can fill it in. The other ones are brackets, the major event, the central character, etc.
Yeah.
Is there any chance that you guys will ever put in fields for, say, I already know my character. Will you put fields for the major event and the central character and everything that you actually have in brackets to make it like the curly quotes or whatever y'all?
We could. Yeah. I have full control over that. It's just changing a database. It's the easiest thing ever to bring this particular prompt into. If I was to grab this, I wasn't fully planning on showing this, but I think it's worth it because I know, Miracle, you do end up editing these a little bit, right? To like clean up the time in between.
Oh, yes. Yes. You're good.
Okay. So if I was to go to Rexy and then to the prompt catalog, this is literally how we control prompts. And this is not secret sauce or anything like that. All of our users are going to very soon have their own databases that look very similar to this. So in this ideas and inspirations, I can literally just go, okay, you know what? I want to duplicate that. So I duplicated it. I'm going to open it and I'm going to call this eGlobal, just as the example. And you'll see I have this prompt right here to change, follows this format. Okay. And now what I'm going to do in order to do this, to turn these into brackets, what I need to do is, what I probably would do here is go the little squiggle brackets. I would put, let me see what I have in my content tokens already. So these are the content tokens already here that are already into this database here. So we could do even more things. So when we'll just go ahead and go with what it's called. I apologize here. So I'm going to take out ideas on this prompt. And I'm going to go, okay, so I need a major event happens, right? So I'm going to call this major event and create that. Now the major event, the color of it controls how big the box is on the front. So we'll just do it default right now. And then the other ones I need is central character, main action and goal. So here we go.
So
Central
basically,
character.
you can label everything that you want specifically within the prompt that you were engineering.
Yes.
Perfect.
So if you wanted to reuse them, you just have to do this action and goal and then antagonistic force.
And I want to make sure I'm super clear on this. Is something that the user will be able to do on the front end, not y'all on the back end, right?
Both. Both. So this is the master library, but you'll be able to do this on your own prompting library too. Scary, huh? Once I have this information here, I can also change what main model I want to do. If I don't want to do 3.5 turbo, I can pick which default model I want it to be. So the genre, the number, and all this. Now I need to fix this prompt a little bit because the brackets, they're actually important and we want to keep that because that is context. Because when you put something into the squiggle box, when it said, give me number, it just put the number 4. It didn't give any context of what that was. And in the case of a number, it didn't need to know that. But you'll see here a novel story premises for the genre of, it's going to just put in fantasy romance there. It's not going to say that it's the genre fantasy romance, if that makes sense. It's easier to see this in person, in practice. So I wanted to say when a major event happens, and the way I prompt construct, which is a little bit different, but similar, is I put these brackets in here and I'm basically turning it into a tag. So it has an open and a close tag. And that just provides context of what's inside of those tags for how the LLM is supposed to know what that means. And then in the middle here, where the little curly brackets are, I just put in, oh, you know what? I messed up. Apologies. Major event can't be that, can't be that, can't be that. We don't put spaces. So this was my bad. I wasn't planning on showing this particular thing, but I think it's an important. So you guys are getting something that really not many people other than FFU members have seen. Central character. Oh, wait, hold on. Control X. So major event, central character. I spelled it right. And what was the other one? Action goal.
And then you have your antagonistic force.
Okay. So now we have those. Oh, I still put a space for these. I can't help it. I
don't think you put the space there. They were smushed together. And then when you hit enter, it looked like it separated.
It is. It's because the other ones exist.
Okay.
So it's trying to think for me and I just need to delete them. Yeah, I fixed it.
Actually, Cece, I'm okay with this because I love prompts.
So now I just have to make the major event match. And then I put it in, same thing here, central character. We're almost done, guys. I promise. I know this is a little bit like watching paint dry. And then I'm going to put in brackets here, central character. And we could have gone like main character, which is probably just as fine as well. And then main action goal. I'm actually going to change this to take out the slash because there's going to be a slash at the front of it. And then I put my curly brackets. I call them squiggle brackets, squiggles, action goal. And because of the antagonistic force. And then I just need squiggle brackets, antagonistic force. Now, obviously, we are trying to make an effort to try to like standardize what these boxes would be called and everything like that. OpenAI says at 236. Okay, OpenAI, thank you for that.
Most definitely.
So we have this information here. I just double check, make sure I closed everything. The central character must perform main action goal. And the important thing, and this important thing is at stake. Okay. And if you want, explain what happens if the central character fails. Sound good? Because you asked for that, right?
Perfect.
Okay. So we have this information. It's all good to go. Now, users can't do this yet. I'm an admin, so I can do this, but you'll be able to do this very soon. So I just go to my config page and I just go to advanced settings. That's what it is. So I will global clear the cache. And now if I come over to my library, it's going to reload my library. And remember, we made that other prompt. There it is, story premises e global. And if I load that prompt, look at that. All of these different things are in here. And now on this left-hand side, we controlled basically the worksheet of what you would put in. So we are literally building a very robust tool that can be fully customizable exactly the way you want the prompt. So you don't have to spend all of your brain power memorizing all of these very complicated prompts. If you have a prompt that works, you can basically immortalize it as a prompt in your database and you just recall it and you just put your information in and you rock and roll.
Well, I could have so much fun with that.
Yeah. Now, one thing I did want to talk a little bit about before we got a little distracted. We still have this completion in our memory here, basically. And so if we go to our completion tab, you can change your completion right here. So if I don't like the name Lily, I could change her name to something else or right here in this particular box and change it. And then we have these cool save slots right here. You're probably going like, what are you going to do with the save slot, Elizabeth? I can just assign this to S1 right now.
The whole thing,
Okay.
all 4 of them?
Yeah, the whole thing is saved there. I don't have to copy and paste. It's just saved. There is no max number of prompts because it's a Notion database, and Notion doesn't limit how many prompts how many things you can have in a database. You can have thousands. I think we're all going to end up with thousands. You save it to your S1 slot. I can come back to my library. I think we need a character sheet. What do you think, Marigold?
I think a character sheet would actually do really well.
Yeah. How about this? Let's go ahead and create a list of characters, generate a character list. So we'll go ahead and load this. We also have character sheets in there too. I'm not going to use OpenAI since it's down for right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move over to Anthropic, and we'll do Claude. We'll do Claude Instant for right now, just to make it fast.
Just like that.
Now,
That is really cool.
I don't have to do different tabs or anything like that. Now, again, I'm going to custom make the prompt. We're not going to save it to the prompt library this time, y'all, but just to change it because of the information that we have. If I go over here to my magic elements, I can see in my S1 slot, all of these things are here, right here. So what I'm going to say is that generate, let's see here. I'm going to change this prompt at the top, press and enter. And I'm going to say for each story premise in this list, and that list is my S1 slot. That's all I have to do. I just do my curly brackets because it's in my S1 slot. So for each story in this list, generate, how many characters do we want? Do we want 5 characters for each one?
Let's do that.
5 characters. Include physical description, internal goals. It's just a very basic thing for the list. And again, if I want to construct, go ahead.
I apologize. There's a question in the queue. Jen asked a really important question. Will there be a max number of prompts within there?
Nope.
Okay.
I answered that earlier. I was like, it's all a Notion database. They don't limit it. You'll have as many, you can have tens of thousands of prompts. That's why we're working on the taxonomy, because we all know if there's hundreds of prompts, it's too many. But if they're categorized for you, then you can go get the prompt that you need.
Nice.
All right. So let's call this character list. And I like to construct the prompt. I always like to construct the prompt just so that I can see that it looks the way I want it to look like. So I can see right here, it has some funky spacing right here. If I don't like that, I can press a return here so that now when I construct the prompt, now I can see that spacing is cleaned up. It's almost like a prompt preview. And then if I want to see that prompt, and this is what's super, super cool. I just want to show you guys. You can just copy this. I don't know if ChatGPT is having a bad day right now or not. We'll give it a try. I will throw this into ChatGPT. I'm going to use 3.5 just so that it's faster. Oh, it is having problems. Okay. Then we'll go to my homeboy.
Now, if you wanted to take each one of those 4 and drill down into them and create your own cards for each individual one, you could do that as well.
Yeah, you would just have to manually change the prompt or edit it out. So I'm running this in the chat Claude. I'll go back to it in just a second, but I'm also going to we'll run it with 2, and we'll process Claude 2.0. I was just showing how you could literally copy and paste that prompt into Claude, and you'll see how Claude is starting to write for you based on the story premises provided. It only did the main character, so it didn't quite understand that I wanted 5 characters for each premise. That's probably on my bad because I didn't say for each premise. So what I have to do is say for each story premise in this list, generate 5 characters. So I'm just going to explain it better. There should be a total of 20 characters. So I did the math for them, and I can just process it again and see if it now understands its life a little bit better.
Elizabeth,
And if go ahead, Marigold.
would y'all ever have a banner or stream up at the top if one of the LLMs that is housed there, if it ever went down? Would that be something that FFA could actually incorporate at some time?
I believe so. As it depends on if the model is going to have some kind of data stream to let us know. In OpenAI's case, we do have an OpenAI status thing, but some of these open source models and stuff like that, they don't have big infrastructure behind them or anything. So they're not going to say if they're down. But that's where being part of a writer's community like FFA or your Discord really matters, because if you're part of these communities of active professionals working with AI, we can crowdsource information and let each other know when something is down. Did that answer the question?
Most definitely.
Yeah. There's some questions here about you don't have to show. Program will have a way to incorporate and work on a partially written book. So that I actually on my YouTube channel, not mine, but the FFA's YouTube channel, we have some write-a-thons and stuff where I showed kind of those methodologies about continuing an existing book. What really has to happen is you have to take what you have in the book so far and you have to break it down into elements that the AI can understand. That is summarizing your chapters already written so far into summaries, getting a character list and everything like that. You're always going to have to work on writing in slices. And the future of Rexy is actually going to allow you to sequence prompts. If I have a little bit of time left, I can go ahead and show you how we're working on, this is like new innovation of being able to run multiple prompts at once in one go. Does that sound exciting?
Sure. About 10 more minutes.
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay.
So real fast with the completion, you see I changed that prompt and now we have 5 characters per premise there that we wanted. So each premise now gave us those characters and everything like that. So there we go. And the other thing I will do here is I'm going to show you Word Banger a little bit. So Banger is similar to Prompter, but fundamentally the difference is that it allows you to sequence repeats, and the repeats are controlled by these instances up at the top. So just a very quick, simple one that I'm going to do is I'm going to say, this is very generic prompting. Write me 4 premises for an urban fantasy novel. And I'm going to go grab that prompts that we had. Let's see here. It's in the prompt, copy and paste. Oh, I don't have it there. So it's in the chat. Let me see here. You know what? We'll just let the AI write the premises. We won't define the premises. We'll let it do its own thinking here. It's a little bit scary when we let it think, but we're just to show the tool how it can do. So write me 4 premises for an urban fantasy novel. And then, so it's going to do that instruction first. And then I'm not going to put anything in the top box because the top box happens before the big bang box. That's what we call this. So it's like a sandwich. It'll load this instruction first, then what's in the bang box, and then this final instruction down here. So I'm going to say, choose the best premise above and flesh it out into a full hook and pitch. All right. And then Insta3. So the hook and pitch, it'll read above. Now, using all the information above, write me a list of characters and details about them for an AI to be able to write the story. And last little thing, let's tell it, write an outline. Write me a 12-chapter outline of the book with great details on plot, character motivations, setting, and all other details to write the book. Very generic prompting here. The key thing about Word Banger is going to open up the possibility for you to go do 1, then do 2, then do 3, then do 4. So I'm going to click auto write. So it'll auto write each one of these little pieces to my Notion, just in case something falls down or has a problem. I'm going to do 4 bangs, 4 repeats, because I have 4 instructions. If that makes sense to everyone. And now I got to pick my model. So we won't use Anthropic. We'll use OpenAI and we'll go ahead and use 16K.
So
we'll use,
I'm understanding this correct. That means that in each one of those fields, 1 through, I believe it's 10.
Yep.
Right. A user could potentially take a chapter and have either a beat or a stride of beats in each one.
Yes.
And have it right.
Yeah. It'll read what it wrote so far and keep going. So you have the ability to use the full context window of any model you have. These other tools out there are not allowing that. They're controlling how much of it's not siloed inside, as long as the context window can handle it. So right now, Claude is about the only one that has a context window that can read 100,000 tokens. But if you're using 16K, you have 16,000 tokens. You can write 2 chapters in that for most people and have it read up and just keep writing. You have full control over the reading up. How many of you have heard of other AI tools out there that let you read up? But we can't control how much it reads up, and it's a little bit murky on how much it's reading up. You get to control that now.
Nice.
The temperature, we'll go ahead and put this at the 1.8, and then we'll also do the top P at 0.6. So we'll let it write very rich. These are just hyperparameter settings that help for, I think, richer writing with the OpenAI models here. And now I'm just going to click Let's Bang. Now, I broke it. This is about this is an error that we've been trying to trace with OpenAI. It's been doing some funky things. And we know that Word Banger is one that does it. Like I said, it's a open model here, or it's in beta. I'm going to try one more time.
Now, could it
and
be
see if it works.
because of OpenAI having some issues earlier?
It's possible. I'm going to try it again and see if it goes through. Okay, it doesn't. So I'm just going to change the model. That's not a big deal. We'll go and move over to Claude real fast. So let me go ahead and go to Open Anthropic,
I
and we
love
will
the
let.
versatility of the tool. If one AI or LLM is down, you can always go and select another. So I like the options. That's pretty cool.
I'm actually going to use Mythomax. I'm going to show you guys Mythomax real fast, which is a model that can only write 400 tokens back at a time, which is okay. So I'm going to modify. No, I don't think I cleared my API keys. So if I go to my config, it's still all there. We've just been having particular issues with that aspect of it. So let me do something a little bit different because
Gianna,
I'm changing a little bit. Oh, go ahead, Marigold.
Gianna, can you expand on that? I'm not sure what you were asking there.
Oh, I do. So you want us to continue a story already written if there was a chapter already going?
Yeah, if you have chapter 1 and you want to give it the context from chapter 1 to write chapter 2.
Yeah, it can. If the context window can allow it, you can do that. So let me do that with a little bit that I did for. Let me go here. Let me go to. There was a completion here. This one. This was a little bit of a chapter 1 I ran of the stuff that Marigold gave. I'm just going to paste this into here. If I just wanted to continue writing this chapter of what happens going on next, let's say I want to have a monster. I'm going to say that we're going to start writing chapter 2. So I'm going to go chapter 2. I'm not even going to tell it the names of the characters. We have Lara and Cleo in it, right? So it's just going to get the information from there. And I'm going to say, have the characters walk home and be attacked by a vampire. I know they're not going to, but that's okay. So I'm going to tell it to do that instance 1 there. And we'll just click let's bang and it should just write. So it read up and it's working now. This is Mythomax. This is one of the open source free not free. It's like dirt cheap models. It's cheaper than even GPT 3.5. And I'll show you how much this costs in just a second. So you'll see, I just said the characters and it picked up Cleo and I. Now I know your original chapter 2 Marigold changed points of view. I didn't give it that information to do that. I just wanted to show that it can continue what happened from chapter 1.
This is cool though, because that means that I could really see this working for somebody who is a plotter planner, who has it all planned out. But it looks like it'd be great for a pantser who just wants to write on the fly.
But it did little to dispel. And I just want to see what happens next. I can just click let's bang again and it'll just continue what it was there. So we had this deep, I am brave to add a monster to Mythomax while streaming. No, Mythomax is unfiltered. Mythomax will write whatever. Last night we were all playing and we were having him write sex and violence and he can do all of that. So we have more here. The figure in the shadows, you and Cleo need to be cautious. Mysterious man in the gazebo might be another character from the game where you could have center. Stay vigilant. So look at that. It picked up the game, which was already all the way up at the top of the murder mystery game up here. So we still have a lot of work to do with these. And I apologize I couldn't show OpenAI, but this is what I think the future is. The future is giving creatives these massively powerful tools to really orchestrate. I always feel like a creative director, like this, and then put it here, bring this prompt in. And as we start to develop these workflows and stuff, like that whole time I was working, I felt like I was in flow. But we also wanted to make sure that it does work well for pantsers, planters, and plotters. Because I'm an author first. I'm one of you all. I've been making my living off of writing fiction since 2011. I wanted to make sure that if we're going to be building these tools as a society, and believe me, the big companies are, I want it first in the hands of indies that we have full control over the books and we can write.
Most definitely. So, thank you so much for showing us this information today. And at some point, we would love to have you back on again. Definitely, especially when you have some new updates, definitely would love to have you back.
Yep. And thank you for your all's grace. I know Rexy's a little rough behind the edges there, but we're still building him out and it's by authors for authors. So that's what we're working on. Go Rexy. Yes. I love him. He's like my little favorite.
Well, he's just a little baby right now, but boy, is he growing. So not a fun thing.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and step away, but I'm sure Marigold will share links or anything like that. But we do have a YouTube channel on Future Fiction Academy, information there. And then we also have our website, which is futurefictionacademy.com.
Why don't you drop those into the chat before you go?
Sure. And I will get out of y'all's hair.
You are not in our hair. Thank
No, but I'm exhausted and I've got to pack because I'm going to Novelist Incorporated. I'm starting to drive to Florida for a writers conference tomorrow. So that's a week
Oh.
long.
you. Have fun.
Yes, my 4th year going. So there's our YouTube channel. And then here is our website. And we have a lot. We do have a free course on generative AI. And then there's also the information about the tuition and stuff for Future Fiction Academy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And safe travels.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. So what I do want to do today, I know that we've been working with our story with Laura and with her love interest. And we know that we have worked and massaged that first chapter. One of the things that I want to show you today is before you write any prose, one of the things that I'd really like for you to think about is what should your body of work look like? What should it sound like? What should your body, what kind of tone do you want it to have? What kind of structure? That's one of the first things that I think of when I am looking at my characters. I want to know what kind of voice am I going to convey? I know that there are a lot of things out there, and if you are a pseudo-write user, they do have the match your voice. Jasper even has some branding for voice. So again, you can input that information, even if you are in Chat GPT 3 or I believe it's 4, you can input your specific instructions. Now, I tend to not do that because I change my content so frequently that if I did that and I stored the information, I would probably forget that I had stored it. So one of the things that I like to do is make it unique for each one of my books. So if I want to know more about my characters and their voice, then I'm going to use a prompt to basically let me know what information I need. Now, let's take a look at this prompt. We're going to use the structure below, which you see here in the JSON, and I've keyed in my character's name, even her Meyer-Briggs. I have keyed in the love interest's name in his Meyer-Briggs, which we got from, our 3rd class when we did our character creation 101 class. That's where we ended up getting our Meyer-Briggs. So I'm going to play upon that so that the AI knows what kind of personality my characters have. Now, the other thing that I want the AI to do is I want the AI to take this information that is inside of my prompt, and I want the AI to ensure that it is giving me every nuance of my character. Now, the interesting thing about this is that I could use this on every single chapter and never change it if I wanted to, but that might do an injustice to my character. What I could do is take this whole prompt for both my characters and I can copy that and then I can go into chat, which let's hope he's up because if he's not, I'll have to show you what I generated prior. But what I can do is I can come in, I can put in my character information here, and I am going to grab my chapter. So give me just a moment to grab that chapter. And I know that I've told y'all that I really like to use Vellum whenever I am storing my content. Some people like to store their content in Scrivener. Some people like to do that inside of other storage areas. So whatever method you use and it works for you, by all means, don't stray from that. But I am going to always probably come back to Vellum because it's a process that works for me. I'm going to grab my characters. I'm going to grab some information. I want to look at this stuff. Now, this is some early stuff. So remember earlier, we had a human here and we had an elf earlier. We've made some changes since then, and we've incorporated that into GPT-4. So what I will do is come back down and I am going to grab my first chapter. Now, all I'm needing is for information on what my character sounds like in that chapter. So I'm going to grab all of that chapter, even the little notes, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to take all this that's in here, and now I'm going to come back up to the top, and I'm telling it to use the following structure provided. I want to ensure that the LLM is following my direction. I'm going to copy that just in case it's down. But now I'm telling it to use the following structure, and I want to layer the tone, the mood, all of my first chapter. I want the LLM to generate my content. It's not paying attention, so let's scold it. So I'm going to instruct it again. So here it is telling me on my chapter 1, my POV character is Laura. It's telling me the time of day. It's giving me the setting. It's giving me all of my characters. So it's giving me the information that I had before, and it's giving me more information about the voice. It's going to give me the internal monologue, how the character gets excited. It's going to give me her speaking with energy and passion. It's going to be using some colorful language, metaphors. So everything that it is pulling straight off of my beats. Now, whenever I go in to actually generate my prose, I can then take all of this information and I can actually enter that into my beat card whenever I'm in, say, Story Engine, or if I'm going to write in Claude or in another area, I would actually take this information and that would become my instruction header. Now, if it was chapter 2 and it was the love interest, then I would be able to have the same information, but from the love interest's perspective. And this is one of the ways that I massage and keep my character on task. And I do this for each one of my chapters. Now, is there a time when I can actually do it once for my female character and once for my male character? Yes, sometimes I can do that. And then I can just alternate between my characters. But this kind of wraps the tropes, the themes, it wraps all of that tone and mood in one chapter. And I now know that if I use this for chapter 1, run it again for chapter 2, again for 3, that it's going to be unique to that chapter. And I will provide a prompt for that. Yes, Wordsmitter.
I'm sorry. Nina has a question.
Yeah.
The beat card for Story Engine, you'd put it as a header on top of the beat section or in front of the prose section?
I actually put it up at the very top, and I always put my normal beats down below. And if you notice, do you see how I fed the system? I'm using an ABC. And why am I doing that? Because I do want to take this into the pseudo-write story engine, and we're going to play with this tomorrow. We're going to actually generate some prose on this tomorrow. And the reason why I have A, B, C, D, E here is because if I had a number 1 here, then in pseudo-write story engine, it would automatically think, oh, that's where my beats start. That is not where my beats are going to start. My beats will start after all of this information on my characters and this framework has been reviewed by the AI. I'm going to have my beats down underneath this story beat section. And my very first beat, beat 1, will have the 1 right in front of it so that it'll signify that and tell Story Engine that this is my first beat. Everything prior to that number 1 is going to be in my header and my instruction. Now, you can always check that by going into pseudo-write story engine and doing the beat checker, which we will play with tomorrow so that y'all can get a really good bird's eye view. So today, what we're going to be focusing on, like I did here, I just pulled in this information to get my character's voice. I'm also listing my characters so that I know exactly who is in that chapter. Now, the other thing that I actually like to do whenever I'm writing a story, especially if I'm inside of pseudo-write story engine, I like to designate how much dialogue I might want. And I found Cece and I were doing some investigation, and we found that, say, you're writing a thriller versus maybe a historical Western, your dialogue percentage may differ between the genres depending on what the needs of the story are. And I have found that if I go into GPT-4 and I ask it to look at that first chapter and to give me the story element breakdown, it actually does really well. Now, I can create one of those to go across the whole book, or I can do it at the individual chapter level. Let me show you what that looks like. Give me just a minute to go and pull my prompt for that. And this section right here, and y'all saw a little bit of this earlier, it's saying, keeping in mind the current story, I want you to change and convert this framework into a framework that I can use across the first 3 chapters or even the whole book. So I'm going to pick one. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to tell it I just want it to be applied to the first chapter. So you can see this is long. Can you see where my character development, I want it to be 20 to 25%. I want the world building here. Now, my percentages might change when I pull this back in and say I have a fight scene in chapter 12. I would definitely want to run this again because some of these percentages might change depending on what's happening in that chapter. So let me go ahead and grab the rest of this prompt. And again, all I am doing is grabbing story element. These are the elements that make up my story. I want to direct it at a very detailed level of my story. So I'm going to go back up to the top and again, decide what it is that you want the AI to do for you. So I'm saying, keeping in mind the current story, I want you to change and convert this framework into a framework that I can use across, let's say, the first chapter. What I found interesting about this is that I had a character who has mutism, and I was actually able to use a similar framework, and it instructed the AI to use other senses when she was mute. And it helped me to layer that into her beats. Now, I am asking to remove all elements of any other genre that doesn't match the urban fantasy story and replace it with elements of, and we'll say, urban fantasy. Now, say you have a dark mafia romance that's an enemies to lovers. You could state that doesn't match, I don't know, a historical Western, and you can ask it to do whatever it is that you're looking to have it massage. Say you have a dark mafia romance and you want it to be an age gap. Then you would put dark mafia romance here. See, remove all elements of any other genre that doesn't match the UF fantasy, or in this case, the dark mafia romance, and replace it with elements of the story. And you could add in here that it is an age gap. It is maybe an enemies to lovers. Maybe it's a forbidden love. In this case, I could add forbidden love, but I wouldn't do that in the first chapter. Otherwise, the AI might have the couple actually meet and get married, and we don't want that. And I'm going to state and replace it with elements of the story. And you would want to put your characters' names, especially if you are wanting it to focus on them. Now, I am going to state that Cleo is Laura's friend. And now I have the framework here. I am going to go ahead and I always do a Control A and then a Control C to copy that, because you never know when something's going to go wrong and then you lose everything that you just put in there. So let's go ahead and push it forward. Sometimes you have to prompt it a few times because it gets confused. So the task is to continue this urban fantasy story of Laura, and it shows the love interest. I can tweak that a little bit. Cleo is a supporting character, so I can put Cleo in here if I want to. Now, take a look at your true false. I definitely want to use the 5 senses. I want dialogue. I want sentence variety. I definitely want some setting details. My characters, I want them to have some interactions. I want my plot to progress gradually. Now, what if it was a battle scene? I might not want it gradual. I might want to put a different word in there if I want to up the tension. So again, think about the ways that you can direct your story. Here, it's,
Yep.
yes, go ahead.
I thought I'd catch you before you moved on. Nina says she's confused. Is this to direct the chapter to focus the prose on whether it's a scene setting versus action focused chapter?
I am wrapping my first chapter. It is wrapping chapter 1 into all of this content. So for just my chapter 1, it is going to tell the AI what it is that I'm looking to have. It's going to tell the AI that for my character development, and I'll probably remove the love interest because he is not in the first chapter except as a mystery man. I'm going to stay at the 20 to 25%. That's how much focus I want on my central character. That's how much I want the AI to focus on Laura. I want the narrative should dive deep into the motivations, maybe the fears, the desires, and the evolution of I'm going to remove him because remember, they are not supposed to be getting together here. So I'm still going to edit some of this, but once I finish, it's an easy fix, the evolution of, and then I would just remove both and just say Laura. And then I could even put Cleo in here and talk about the mystery. I do this because it helps me structure my body of work. I can turn up the conflict by making the percentages go up or down. I can turn up the action or turn it down. I can do foreshadowing, which I never really take higher than a 5. And I can have romance development. Now, this is pivotal for me because if I don't want them to actually fall in love and they're in this together, I can actually turn that down to a 2 or a 5. I could turn down that romance development because they're not there yet. I can control backstory. I can control flashbacks. That's one of the things that I like about the story element prompt. Do y'all have questions about the prompting?
So basically, what you're saying is that, say you had a romance scene, you would jack that up during that particular chapter. Now, tell me something. Say chapter has some action, which then leads into some romance. Same chapter, different scene. How would you manage to control that percentage so that it's applied? Well, so they're not kissing in the middle of a fight scene or something like that.
If I have a chapter that has 2 really completely different scenes taking place, then I would more than likely break that chapter up into 2 cards on pseudo-write story engine, and I would actually generate them separately. And I would do that because 1, if I turn up the romance for them to have that tender moment, then you would have them kissing during the battle. And that is not something that you want. Now, could I go in and specify that for beats 1 through 6, I want a lower percentage for my romance development? I could do that. And then I could say for beats 7 through 12, I want to amp up the romance and turn down some of that conflict and tension. So I could do that, but I have to be very careful doing that because what happens if the system glitches and it begins to loop? If it begins to loop, then I could possibly have it hit the wrong percentages. Hopefully it wouldn't loop, but there are times when the systems do glitch. But I would just to ensure that I didn't confuse the AI, because I'm giving it a lot of detail, I would go ahead and silo those two scenes of that chapter. And I would do chapter 5 and then chapter 5B. And then I would give it different percentages.
And then you just merge them at the end when you're putting it
I
together.
would. Oh, definitely.
So
Go ahead.
you mentioned percentages and you mentioned confusion, which is interesting because those two questions are actually in chat. Ciaran, and I hope I pronounced your name correctly, wants to know if the percentages have to total 100%. Melissa wants to know if you find the AI is ever confused because of all of this information. And Nina wants to know if the characters for that chapter, if the characters are not in it, it knows the characters for that chapter, why mention them in the JSON instructions. And that's it, because I can answer.
So the reason why I'm putting them in the JSON is because that's where my list is going. Sometimes whenever I am generating, I might have my first line might say chapter 1. And here, let me bring it up and I'll show you. Right here up at the very top, do you see how I have chapter 1 and then I have Laura's name? If sometimes when I go into pseudo-write story engine, I will place in here that this is her first person POV, and then I will put in here that it is past tense or present, and I would essentially take all of this information and paste it in with a different prompt if I wanted to. But because of the intricacy of this story, I want to control the percentages because there's a lot of stuff happening in here when it comes to the magic, to the tension, to the different world or the veil between the worlds. I want to be able to control that at a very detailed level. And the only way that I have found to be able to do that is with the percentages. Usually, if it's a simple, say it's a monster romance, it's got a very simple linear plot, maybe only a story A, maybe a story B in it, but I will not use my prompt that I wrap the percentages in. But if I have something that is extremely complex, I will use the percentages. Now, keep in mind that if I have a chapter that has multiple people in it, then I will wrap some of that into that percentage. Now, is it going to wrap in there a lot of information about Anna or Anna's dog in there? No, because it's only going to really want to focus on my main characters. So that's one of the things that you want to make sure that you're taking a quick glance at to make sure that it's not trying to throw your characters in together too fast. For the most part, ChatGPT-4 does really well with these promptings, but just like you have to check your beats, you need to check the percentages. Now, it will wrap the information about your setting. It will wrap, again, the tension. If it's a fight scene, it will wrap that in there. What was the second question, Cece?
Boy, let me scroll back. Was it the question about whether it would be too much information for the AI and might confuse it? I'm thinking.
Let me see. I think I have some in this one. We will play here. Here, I have a version here for my young girl. This is the young adult. And this is a variation of what you see inside of ChatGPT-4. I'm asking it to write in her first person perspective. I have a day, time, I have a character list, and I have story elements. In addition to that, I do have the genre. I am stating that there's a musical scene. Everything is music to her. I have my character development, and there's a focus on what the AI should be paying attention to. I have my conflict, tension, action. Does this make it a little easier for you to see since it's expanded out? Again, I'm going back down. I'm taking a look. I have my instructions. I want smooth transitions. I want the consistency and the tone to be, I don't want it to waver. I don't want it to all of a sudden just jump to a completely different tone or mood that has not been earned. Now I've listed the setting and her voice and her story tone down here. I could put it up at the top too, but I'm a creature of habit, and this tends to be how I format. Notice how I have the number 1 there. That is going to signify to Pseudo-Write Story Engine that when I go to generate those prose, that this content right here, from that one right here, and everything down below are my beats. Now we can check our beats. And here, let me turn that off and show you again. I advise you, if you are a Pseudo-Write Story Engine user, before you hit that prose generation, that you come over here and you click check beats. And we will be playing with this tomorrow.
And you have more questions rolling in. It says, yes, thanks. But you'd adjust the JSON per chapter silo as well to direct which part of the character development occurs in that chapter silo or not?
I do. For some books, if they are not overtly complex, I will not change them chapter for chapter, but some of them I will. I had to pay special attention to Amelia's story because Amelia speaks in the first couple of chapters, but then she goes mute. And I have to make sure that I am corralling the AI and making sure that the AI understands that she's still going to communicate. She is just not going to be speaking verbally. She can communicate by texting on her phone. She can communicate by writing something down or by gesturing. And I wrap that in to my context. Otherwise, even though I say that she has mutism, if I don't have the instructions, she begins to talk. And that is not the way I want her written. So I am guiding the AI to tell the AI what it is that I want. So here she is still speaking. Go ahead.
Nita says, those are not story engine beats, though. You pasted them from GPT.
That is correct. These were not generated inside of Story Engine. And if you, I don't know if you watched the young adult video that I have up on YouTube, that is what this story is from. And I still have another part to do on that, which will be finishing the generation of the whole book. And I will be doing a video on that again soon. But yeah, you can actually see the process from beginning to up to this point if you look at that video on the young adult novel. So here are all of my beats. You can see that I have a total of 15. I do have the information that's happening here. I have a cliffhanger at the bottom, and then I have my prose. And I did run this in most accurate because I like most accurate whenever that's my preference. Here they are arguing. So is it perfect? No AI generation is going to be 100% perfect or match exactly what I want. But as a writer, I'm going to pull this content off and I'm going to do the editing myself. Now, if you notice, I have already prepped this. So I have section 1, part 1. I've played around with a couple of these. But if you notice, I have section 1, 2. That's my chapter 2. I have my chapter 3 up. And some of my percentages are spot on here as well. Now, as I get further into the novel, when the tension begins to grow and she is bullied and she begins to withdraw, that's when some of the percentages begin to change. This is something that, again, we will have a segment on this, but I wanted to show you what this content looks like. Do y'all have questions? Y'all are a quiet group.
Nothing in chat. They weren't so quiet a little bit ago. They were bombarding it with questions in the chat.
Once we put this video up with the prompt where you can go and grab this information for your chapters, or if you want to use it across the whole book and you want it to be very bare bone, you notice that these are very bare compared to what I was doing with the current body of work. And it's because I am wrapping more of my story into the template, depending on what I feel the needs of the story are. And what is this information that is being wrapped in? All of this is part of my story elements. It is, if I were writing this manually without AI, I would need to be contemplating how much world building do I need in this chapter? How much dialogue do I need to show? What kind of tension do I need to have in the chapter? What kind of action is happening? Do I need to foreshadow for things to come? Do I need to plant some Easter eggs? Is there a friendship that needs to develop? What about a backstory? Those are all things that I would have to think of if I was writing this without AI assistance. And because I have to think about that as an author, I want to direct the AI. I want to see just how far I can push the AI. And this is why I'm telling you, you are the individual who is guiding and directing your AI. It is not the other way around. The AI does not direct you. You direct the AI.
Before you leave here, Nina had another question. She said personal preference, but do you end up doing all that across multiple chapter silos before you hit the generate for prose? Or
I
do you
do.
prose silo at a time before you get to the next silo?
So I'm very much a creature of habit. And if I have gone over all of my chapters and I have gone over all of my beats over and over again, which I'm sure I missed something, I definitely am not going to catch something 100% of the time, all the time. There are times where you might miss something and something vague slips by. Same thing can happen to me, but I do tend to plot everything out as a extreme plotter planner. And then here, I'm going to scroll real quick across just so you can see. I have all of this already set up, and it goes to chapter 30. Whoops. And it goes all the way to chapter 30. You can actually see right here. I have all 30 of them up.
So on that topic, slide to the left or scroll to the left.
How far?
Towards the beginning. You're going to the right.
Wait.
Where the outline is. Show me the outline.
Okay.
Did you do this outline or did Pseudo do this outline?
Pseudo did on this one. I actually plugged it and then brought it back. And I took bits and pieces off of it and then left the content in.
Okay.
Now I could come in here.
Yeah.
And I can show you history.
Yeah.
So this is my history. So I plugged this in manually.
Right.
And then I started making changes. So if you notice, here's my content. I have 30 in here. I had to condense this enough to make sure that everything fit. You'll notice that some of these I'd already moved the content like 26. And then I have this content, the part of the chapter summary underneath it. I have a few of the chapters that are not under it that I have to correct because when I brought my content in, I had to fix it so that it would open up all 30 of my cards. So that's why you see some of the differences there. I just hadn't gotten to this part before I got up and walked away from my computer.
No, that's good. And that's why I wanted you to go back here. And I'm glad the way you did it is because I want everyone to see that you can actually, you don't have to just bring beats in. You can bring your outline in. You can bring a blank outline that's just a template that tells it to create the chapters or the scenes, however you want to label them. So that was all I wanted you guys to see is that you don't have to do all that. But we now have a question.
Okay.
Ciaran says, how's the flow from one chapter to the next? How do you get the flow from one chapter to the next to flow naturally? I think I got that right.
So I don't think it's coming up. One of the things that I tend to do, and it's something that Cece and I played with, and we kept, oh my gosh, every time a chapter ended and then another chapter began, it's almost like it was a completely different story in the beginning. So Cece and I just racked our heads and I wanted to beat my head against the desk, but we finally came up with a solution where we wanted to make sure that each chapter fed in to the correlating chapter. So if I'm writing something all in first person, Amelia is in first person. I'm going to make chapter 1, when it ends on that cliffhanger, chapter 2 had better start right where that one left off, or at least orient the reader to know what type of time has passed. So we do ask Chat GPT-4 when we are brainstorming with it to make sure that the chapters, the ending of chapter 1 flows into the opening of chapter 2. Even though we want a hook at the top of each chapter and we want a cliffhanger at the bottom of each chapter, we want each chapter to flow into each other. We also want to give it some linear time. We want to know what day it is and what time of day. If we have a book that moves through time quickly, we need to be able to adjust that and control how much time has passed. If it is, say, a Scottish, maybe time passes slower there, or maybe days and weeks pass. But if I'm writing a thriller, maybe only 3 days passes across 30 chapters. So again, you have to think about your book and how much time passes. And I pay a lot of attention to that. Not only did we start having our chapters flow into each other, Cece was saying we're having a lot of problems with transitioning between strides. So in Pseudo-Write Story Engine, you have beats 1 and 2 are run together, and then that call hits again, and then beats 3 and 4 are run. And sometimes you have a disconnect in between. We found that if we pay attention to our beats and we make sure that each one of our even beats flows seamlessly or is set up to flow smoothly into the odd number ones, the odd number beats, it tends to have a better transition. Now, one of the things that we just discovered, what was it, just this week, Cece? We were talking about ways to transition when there is a big gap. We found that if we took half of, say, strides 1, 2, and half of stride 3 and 4, and we plugged that into Chat GPT-4 and said to bridge or to transition the two seamlessly, it would actually go in and transition those. And it was doing it pretty good. And that is something that we'll show you whenever we get to Sunday, which I believe is the editing segment. But I do want to show you, let me come over here to Cece's point. I'm going to paste this information over here, but I can't do anything. See, my card is not activated, right? So if I'm bringing in, I could technically come in and bring in just my beats and do nothing to the left except for do this. And Cece is a whiz at this, let me tell you.
I'm really not. All I have is a template that was created a long time ago that was then edited that I copy and paste. I am not a whiz. I'm a slacker that copies and pastes things that if the wheel ever, I'm not going to redo it.
So did you notice how right now my card is not activated? It will not let me generate. If I go down, it will not let me generate prose. But so all I have right now is section 1, introduction, chapter 1. So if I come down and say I want to do this and I change each one of these, I can make my cards fill out. I can have all these cards generate beat cards, but I won't be able to generate my prose because I haven't fully activated my prose yet. And let me show you the trick to that. I can't generate right now because my card isn't activated. And the best way to know when it's activated, you'll see this little gap right here. Cece, can you see my cursor?
I can.
Okay. So there's a little gap right here. When you activate, even if you just type an H, my card is now activated. I can generate prose. Now, I can create all these cards, but notice I have the age here. I don't have it here. This card is not activated, but I could come over here and hit. Now it's activated. That's how you bring in something. If you don't want to put anything in the outline, you don't have to. If you don't want anything to the left, don't put it there. If you are wrapping everything into your beats, then you can bring everything just right there. And then you can generate. Did that answer the question?
To me.
So let me take a look at, I have one more little prompt that I want to show you. So give me just a minute here to pull it up. Some of the other things that I wanted to show you, do you remember where we were looking at that prompt that says that when a major event happens, the central character must perform this main action or goal? Somebody had asked me early on about that. So let me show you how I got that. So we already know that ChatGPT-4 is familiar with this body of work, this urban fantasy. So I am going to take this prompt and say, taking the story into consideration, write me a 1-sentence pitch that follows this format. And this format is the one that I've been showing all week. And I want to know what bad thing will happen if the goal isn't met. Now, I could run this as many times as I want, but it will give me information. Now, if I don't like this one, I can ask for another one. I can also go in and say, give me a tagline, a log line. How about a short and a long blurb? And how many of you publish on Amazon?
Everybody who's sane, I hope. Unless they're using maybe fan fiction sites. You got lots of yeses in the chat.
Okay. And there you go. Now, what do I like the taglines for? I like to use those for maybe some little ads or just some little promo pieces. Again, and it already knows my story, and it's just giving a basic information here on my story. I can play with these. I can rewrite them. Has anybody ever had to write a book release? So I can tell it to write a book release for this content. What are some other ones, Cece? We have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Yeah, you have Amazon subscription, back cover copy. Is that what you're asking? Tagline?
Like TikTok.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. TikTok, because you can also ask it the hashtags that are appropriate for it. And just a thought, you guys, that book release, you're thinking, oh man, when would I ever use something like that? Here's the thing. You have local newspapers in your area. If you contact them with all this, there's a good possibility it might get run. So don't be afraid to reach out to a local newspaper. What they like to look at, human interest stories, and to ask them if they're interested in your book release.
Take a look at that. You need some ad copy for social media. There you go. Now, I did ask it for hashtags. Usually it gives me a lot of hashtags. So it gave them to me just basic down at the bottom, but usually they give them to me with each one of my ad copy. But this is a great way. So say you're on TikTok and you want to pre-schedule. You can say, write me 30 ad copy with punchy, edgy, gritty for TikTok. And you do that. And all you have to do is make sure you have some images and bam, you have 30 of these babies to preload on TikTok.
Hey, Mira, if you can access the chat, Nina has something she's asking if you'll paste in the chat.
What would you like to see?
It's in the comments in the chat.
Oh.
You'd copy and paste it.
I got 90% of it.
Hold on, let me pull up the chat.
Yeah, it's about a couple clicks up.
Can you paste the chat? Taking the story into consideration, write me a 1-sentence pitch that follows this format. Is that what you wanted me to paste in there? Okay.
We could also ask it for an elevator pitch if you guys are ever in a situation where you're at a conference and you have an opportunity to talk to someone.
You can also ask it to give you a treatment. You can ask it just like what Cece was saying, you can ask for a 5-minute pitch, an elevator pitch. If you're pitching for, say, you want to pitch your book for a feature film, you can ask it to give you a feature film pitch. If you want to pitch, say you want to pitch HBO, then you go in here and you say, write me a 5-minute pitch for HBO, write me a 5-minute pitch for Netflix, or write me a treatment for, I don't know, Hallmark. So again, think about the different areas that you can actually use the AI for your benefit.
I know you don't have a concept of time, Mira, so I'm just going to let you know that we're coming up close on 4:00.
Okay. Thank you. And I have no concept of time.
And Nina says, oops, you pasted her chat in your GPT.
I thought that was what you were wanting me to.
I thought so too.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I got 90% of what the original prompt was.
Oh, you wanted the original
The
prompt.
prompt. Yeah, and I think I got it, but I just wanted to double check. If I could just see it for a second, that would also be fine. And maybe I have it all.
And that will be out on the video area.
Oh, and I'll be giving y'all, in fact, let me do it right now. I'm sorry for the folks that left early, but they'll be able to pick it up in the YouTube video. Let me give y'all the handouts right now.
Now, keep in mind, you can make changes. And do y'all want me to plug in the different ones that I used for the social media? Because that was not originally planned. I can grab those and put those out there as well if y'all would like to have those.
You can also share the chat. Bye, Jacob. You can also share it in the chat if you want. Share the chat when you're all done if you want to.
I don't want to share the chat just yet, because if I share it right now, and if we do anything else, then anything after I save it the first time won't be able to be sent to people. So I'm going to go ahead and wait until we're completely finished. Then we will send this once we're done so that you can see the full trail.
Yeah, they'll get it on Sunday, the last day.
Yes,
Sunday.
yes.
In fact, it'll be also on the YouTube's last class so that they can access it there if they have to miss class on Sunday, right?
100%. And we are up to date on all of the videos, and all of the videos that had prompts have their prompts out there right now. The video that we're taping today is the most recent one that will have to go out.
That we're taping right now, huh?
So are there any other questions before we conclude?
There's nothing in chat. Everybody, that anyone has any question, you can unmute yourself and just shoot it at us.
Oh, I'm glad that you were able to find it on YouTube. I really feel that it's important for authors to share knowledge with each other. And AI is so new that Cece and I just felt that we struggled. And if we have a good idea of how to do something, we want to share that, because we may, as we brainstorm with each other as a community, we learn so much stuff. I learned from Lynn. I learned from Nicole. I learned from so many other authors. It is incredible.
She says she struggled, but don't y'all believe it for a second. She grabs by the horns and goes to town. She loved this stuff. So Gianna wants to know, in which video did you do the JSON framework for the characters you used today? Was that
Look at number 3, the character creation 101. Now, there was some JSON inside of the synopsis, which gave us some early character content. So I would look at number 3 because I have prompts in number 3.
Yeah, don't ask me.
That'll be character creation. And yes, Dion, it was 3. If there are no other questions, I'm going to conclude today, but I do want to invite you, if you are not a member of the AI Writers Connection Discord, please be sure to join. We can continue the conversation on the Discord. If you are a member and you have questions, don't be bashful. You can send them through a private message, or better yet, you could post it out into the community so that we can have a discussion. Thank you, Merlin's daughter. No, she's forever Merlin's daughter.
All right. Anyway, thanks again, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe and to ring the bell to be notified of new releases. Just like that.
Thank you, Cece. Bye-bye, everyone.